But first, take a look at this. Essentially, it's a small sponge on the end of a string, but this has saved the life of retired Cambridge scientist Liz Chipchase. She'd agreed to take part in a medical trial purely out of curiosity, and this cyto sponge, which is only available here, was the thing she was testing. Now, it's a quicker and cheaper way of spotting cancer of the esophagus. She's been sharing her story with our science correspondent Richard Westcott.
It looks so simple. A patient swallows this pill on a string and a sponge emerges. Last year on this programme, we showed you how it works.
Once the capsule dissolves, you can pull the sponge back out up the patient's food pipe, where it gathers around 1 million cells. You can then test for signs of cancer.
You can see some of those cells here. They're the white bits gently floating around. The cyto sponge won't be in wide use for at least a couple of years, but Liz signed up for a clinical trial funded by Cancer Research UK. A decision that saved her life. So Liz, this is really a case of like scientific curiosity and pure luck, isn't it? I mean, tell us what happened.
Well, I was extraordinarily lucky. It was curiosity that made me want to do the trial, and also because I have a scientific background, I was just interested in how the trial was run. I assumed that I was entirely healthy. I had no problems, so I thought I'd be a good negative control.
She did the test and forgot all about it, but further tests brought bad news.
I was asked to go in and discuss the results, so I already had a fairly good idea that the results weren't good. And I was told then that I had cancer, which is a bit of a blow. Even if you're half expecting it, it's still horrible to hear someone say the words, and you come home and start looking at your will.
But the cyto sponge had helped spot the signs of cancer early. After treatment, Liz is now fine.
I'm incredibly grateful to the people who do this sort of work, and to the sort of people who fund it, to all the people who raise money to make this work possible. You can't thank someone enough for saving your life. The symptoms are not clear, and by the time the symptoms do appear, it's too late. It's spread too far. So I think, had I not had the cyto sponge test, I would have died.
Richard, the trial is taking place across the country. This was developed here. Obviously, it's worked for Liz. Do we know how successful it's proving, though, elsewhere?
It's too early to say, to be honest, because although there are cases like Liz, and that, it's an amazing, compelling story, isn't it? They haven't got all the results in yet. They haven't tested everybody. I think there's about 12,000 people signed up for it along those lines, and only about 1,500 have had it done so far, which is still a lot of people. So when they've got all those results in, they'll analyse them and they'll start then presenting them properly in official papers, medical papers, and then we perhaps get to the point where this is more widely available, they hope. So that perhaps that could be a couple of years down the line. But we're seeing here already, Liz isn't the only one, where they're picking up the early signs of cancer. It doesn't find cancer, it finds the sort of the stage you get to before the cancer, what makes you more likely to get cancer. But it is working.
I think what's really interesting is when you look at medical advances, we've done a lot about very complex surgeries that can save lives. There seems to be this real switch, particularly in this region, to develop very simple ways of spotting cancer in particular. I mean, you look at this, it's a string with a sponge on the end.
Yeah, it's a big push to basically come up with things that are cheaper, simpler, and so the NHS picks them up, because if it's really expensive, no health service can afford it. So if you think a nurse does that after a few weeks training, well, if you go for an endoscopy, that horrible thing where they put the camera down your throat, that you need someone who's highly trained to do that. It's much more expensive. So there's a really big push for stuff that's cheaper, because there's just no point in finding things that are brilliant but cost so much money we can't pay for them.
And again, we're at the head of the race. Richard, thank you.